everyone, I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings, roofing contractor and building enclosure. Art Aisner, the editor of Roofing Contractor, and I are honored to be visiting with Trent Cotney, the CEO of Cotney Construction Law. And thank you to everyone who's watching. And Art, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, everybody. Trent, welcome as always. As usual, a lot of eyes on politics today, given that we're just a week away from the election. I did want to ask about COVID-19 relief. We saw some negotiation deadlines come and go. Is there still a possibility for a second round of funding, or is that just a pipe dream at this point?
So first off, Jill and Art, it's good to see you guys. Always a pleasure to be here. The answer to your question is no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen before election. It probably won't happen. I have a good feeling that we may be still discussing the election after next week, meaning that I don't know with all the mail-ins and potential challenges whether or not we will have a definitive winner. I think if that's the case, then I think a lot of the stimulus and discussions related to that is going to be put on hold. So right now there's just too much wrangling going on. And I think the stuff that you're seeing in the news is just for that purpose. It's just to say that they're doing stuff. But the reality is people are trying to figure out who's going to lead the nation. And then they're going to back into whatever stimulus happens after that. It will happen. I think it'll happen by the end of the year. But I think that right now everybody is keenly focused on getting to the finish line with this election, please, right?
Right. So if no winner is determined, then I guess that may push things off. But you're so hopeful that something could happen in a lame duck session before the end of the year. It's
possible. Yeah, I think it's possible. I think that something needs to be done in short order. I tend to be a little more fiscally conservative, so I would prefer that we tighten the purse strings a little bit. I am concerned about the amount of our debt from an economic standpoint, but I do think there's some targeted relief that can be done that is something, right? I don't think I would venture to say that the days of the grand handouts are probably gone. That doesn't mean that there might not be additional stimulus checks and things of that nature. But I think what you're going to see is a lot more structured and targeted, more of a focused stimulus package rather than the first couple of versions that we saw.
Okay. We were both part of the recent NRCA telephone town hall where there was a lot of discussion still about tightening supply lines. What are you telling contractors, I guess, concerned about having the materials they need to finish the year strong? Because we are getting there.
Yeah, I tell you what, 2020 has been something. What's interesting, Art, is in addition to lumber prices going up, my concern is that aluminum sheet metal prices are going to go up because of the tariffs. We've continued to see some shortages, and now if you've been checking the news, we got another hurricane hitting the same area again. Okay, and this has created a significant shortfall in materials in this area. I've got a lot of complaints from roofers that have started jobs just to get what they've started blown off, or have the structure be completely destroyed or made basically useless because of water intrusion. Tarps blown off. It is. I was talking to our insurance group this morning, and I said, we have one contractor where the house was hit by 3 storms. How do you determine who's on first for purposes of the claim? It's a nightmare. It's just an absolute nightmare. So I think that you're going to continue to see pressure on materials. I think you're going to see core materials continue to escalate. And again, contractually prepare, make sure that you're taking that into account, especially if the duration of the project is going to be more than a couple of weeks.
Okay. Recently, when we last talked, we did discuss delay claims and the increase you were already seeing from contractors around the country. Can you expand on that a little bit and talk about specifically the no damages for delay clauses that contractors may be seeing more of?
Sure. Well, since last time we talked, it is now, so we measure data in all kinds of different ways. And one of the things that we look at is the nature of claims that we're both pursuing and defending. Okay. And then, for example, if we file a complaint, we capture data not only on the type of claims that we're bringing, but on the defenses that are asserted, right? And then we use that data to help track what we anticipate the future is going to be.
Mhm.
So a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had roughly 336 active litigation cases system-wide. And we saw a marked increase in delay claims. Year over year, it was a 14% increase. And with that, plus or minus 5%, it's within the margin of error. 14% indicates to me that there's something significant going on. Okay, ran the numbers again, that number is now up to 16%. So what I am seeing is more and more delay related claims. And how that looks in litigation is twofold. It's either you're asserting a delay claim, asking for additional money for increased mobilization cost or increased home office overhead, or you're seeing it on the reverse end where defenses are being asserted for, liquidated damages, or you didn't complete your project on time, those types of things. So my advice to anybody that's listening to this is make sure on the front end, you're taking into account potential delays, both COVID related and otherwise, and that you are making sure that you have contractually addressed key things. So a no damages for delay provision that is commonly put into contracts. I put it into for roofing contractors and other contractors for their subs downstream. If you see one of those, recognize that you'll be entitled to time, additional time on a project, but you will not be entitled to cost. So, some practical advice there is make sure you are submitting change order requests for additional time, even if it's a weather delay. Okay, don't just assume that it's a day here, a day here. It's not worth the time. It's absolutely worth the time because every day adds up. So make sure that you are properly and timely submitting those claims. On the cost side of things, there are ways around that provision. Okay, to give you, I won't get into the weeds too much. I don't want to bore everybody with case law sites, but the reality is that if you can show that there was other delay at the time or the owner actively interfered, your customer actively interfered with your ability to perform, there's some case law that says that you can get around that provision, okay? So the key thing here is just be mindful, understand what's in your contract, and that there may be certain ways that you can, get around some of those more onerous provisions.
So we talked about politics, we talked about supply lines and delays. What else are you hearing from contractors this week?
So let me tell you something that causes me some concern. Okay, and this is not a political discussion. Throughout all of our conversations, I've never talked politics, and this is not politics. So anybody listening to this, don't take it that way. If Biden wins the race, there has been some discussion about Bernie Sanders becoming the Department of Labor Secretary. That concerns me from a construction standpoint. Okay, again, nothing about politics, but that concerns me from a wage and hour standpoint, including increased audits, as well as OSHA. So OSHA is under the Department of Labor. So what I would anticipate if that happens is that you are going to see an increase in the number of inspections, an increase in the number of regulations, I don't know who's going to win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but when that was announced earlier, and there's a big push on that side to give him a secretary position, that causes me concern as somebody that fights for the industry, because I can see the regulation increasing dramatically. So again, don't know who's going to win, one way or the other, but that's something that, on Tuesday or beyond next week, we start really looking at, and, don't know where we're going to go or how it's going to happen, but that is something we need to be mindful of. Whoever is in that position in Department of Labor, that directly affects everybody that's listening to this call right now. Okay, regardless of red, blue, green, I don't care what you are, that position impacts everything you do, from how you pay your people to how you pay your subs to the safety that you have on your job sites. It's all dictated top down by that Department of Labor secretary.
Interesting. So, and I think it's safe to say, regardless of whether it's Sanders or whoever is in that post, if the Democrats do take the White House, we should expect some change on both those matters, right? OSHA regulation and perhaps wages.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something to be mindful of. Is that regardless of who's in that position, you're going to see a change from what Secretary Scalia currently has in place. The current administration has been fairly friendly from an OSHA standpoint. During the Obama administration, we saw a tremendous amount of increased regulation, everything from the silica standard to increased fines to electronic reporting and all these other things that happen. That has calmed down. Okay, it's calmed down a little bit under this administration. The rank and file remain the same for the most part, but I have seen a decrease in the amount of regulation that's out there. So it's just something that we want to keep our eye on. I'm not saying it's good, bad, indifferent. Like I've said before, you tell me what the game is, I'll figure out how to play it.
Right. All right. Something, like you said, to keep an eye on. Something else that came to our attention, the National Association of Manufacturers recently joined several other business organizations and some academic institutions in a federal lawsuit claiming new rules for those H-1B visas could put thousands of jobs at risk. Is that something that could impact the construction trades?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the Manufacturers Association, they sued the Department of Homeland Security, and they were able to obtain an injunction that prevented a lot of the current administration's H-1B suggested policies. And some of the stuff that they have put in place makes it very difficult to obtain workers through H-1B. It was already difficult. Okay, there's only a certain number you could get to begin with. Now what they've said is that you've got to pay them within the 95th percentile of the prevailing labor rate, prevailing wage for whatever their industry is. And they have to have a corresponding degree for whatever industry you're looking for. Okay, so it has dramatically impacted construction's ability to obtain workers. From my perspective, again, this is not a red, blue, or green issue. We have got to come up with a way to allow construction to get workers in legally. That's the key. Okay, and we got to have it. We got to have it because there's just not enough skilled labor. The demand is still there, and it's something that again, looking forward to next year, regardless of who is in office, that is something that we need to make sure that our voices are heard, both on definitely on the federal level, because that's where immigration policy is made, but also through our federal representatives and federal senators and your local politicians that have an impact in DC.
Got it. I saw in your recent Cotney Construction Law legal update that you emailed out, you talked about the retainage rate changes that are enacted in Florida. Can you talk about what that means for contractors with government projects?
Sure. So retainage, for those that don't know, is basically a percentage that's taken out of your pay, and it's paid at the end of the project. Okay, I always call it the gravy on top of the mashed potatoes. They're holding it off until you finish your punch list, right? So in Florida, in the past, there had been, for public projects, it was 10% retainage, then 5% upon 50% completion. Okay, that tends to be standard with a lot of states. To give you an example, Illinois in 2019 went to that same arrangement where you go 5% upon 50% completion for private projects. Okay. In Florida, what they did during the last legislative session is they made a change and said that the max amount that on government projects, public projects can take out is 5%. It's capped at 5% from start to finish. Okay, so that's the max. And obviously, from a contractor standpoint, I've never been a fan of retainage because everybody loves you when they sign the contract and they hate you by the time you're done. So getting that final payment is always the most difficult thing to get. So any reduction in retainage is a good thing for a contractor.
So is Florida an isolated case in how it handles that, or could we see other states do similarly, like you mentioned already happened in Illinois?
Yeah, many states already have very similar restrictions on retainage. It's one of those things like indemnification where you have to go state by state by state. Some states have zero restrictions. The universal standard is generally 10%, but many states have very similar provisions to Florida. And in fact, when we were arguing for that change, one of the things that we pointed to was a list of states that have already gone that direction. So it's oftentimes when you're, I'm a point A to point B kind of guy, right? With lobbying, it's not that way. It is, if you want something, the best way to get something done is usually death by 1,000 cuts. So a lot of times what you're looking for is a strategic way to get closer to the finish line. Because if you went straight to the finish line, you're not going to get what you want. And I think what you saw that came out of the retainage bill was a compromise on some other things. And that's how we were kind of able to push that one through. But it's a great news for contractors because, again, if you're not having to chase payment, that's always a good thing.
Got it. All right. Anything we didn't ask this week?
I just want to tell everybody out there, we've been droning on in 2020 for a long time, right? And this has been a hellacious year. But don't lose hope. Don't lose sight of what we're doing. And there's a lot of distraction out there. I look at the news, I watch what's going on, I hear what people are saying. But what I want to do is just make sure I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on the future because all of this will pass. It doesn't seem like it, but it's going to pass, whether it's 2021, 2022, whenever it is. Don't lose hope. Don't lose sight of what you're here to do. And that's the message that I would send anybody that's listening to this is better times are coming. Okay. You view this as opportunity. Okay. And I know it's hard to see it that way, but that would be my message to the people that are listening out there. Contractors, buckle down, look at your standard operating procedures, figure out how to work better, smarter, faster, and use this as a way to differentiate yourself from your peers.
All right. Thanks as always, Trent. Jill, I'm going to toss it back to you.
So Trent, I think I saw an announcement this week about you being general counsel. Is it the Indiana Roofing Contractors Association?
Absolutely. So, Bill, the executive director, and I have known him for a while, and we opened an Indianapolis office. I'm licensed in Indiana, and really looking forward to being able to provide some great content to that association to assist them with a variety of different things. Great group of people. I've known a lot of their contractors for a long time. So looking forward to being able to help them out.
Well, it's always awesome to see how much you give back to the industry, Trent. And for contractors that may be listening that are in, no matter what part of the country that they're in, what services would you say they should reach out for in regards to just their local association or even the national that they should know about or that might be able to help them over the next, few months through this?
Sure. So associations are a great way. They're basically the mouthpiece of the industry, right? And there's strength in numbers. So, and every association offers something, so if you are looking at maybe a state association or local association, that's a great way to get involved organically with what you have, right around you. There are great regional associations that are looking at larger issues and have tremendous technical skills. I'm looking at Western States and NERCA and some of those, obviously great state associations like FRSA and CRCA in Indiana. And, I'm everyone, there's a ton of them out there. But then you look at the national organizations like NRCA and the Canadian Association and some of those, and they're really focused on growth of the industry from a national perspective. So tremendous resources from a safety standpoint, from an HR standpoint, from a workforce training standpoint. And again, it's about, to me, the biggest benefit of being part of associations is knowledge. It's understanding I can't do my job effectively unless I know what the issues are. And it's as important to me to be involved with the Kansas or Kentucky or the North Texas Association or RCAT or any of these great roofing contractor associations out there as it is NRCA, because it allows me to understand both the micro issues and the macro issues, and I can do my job better as a result. So really encourage anybody out there, now's the time to join, because if you're concerned about risk, if you're concerned about how COVID-19 affects you, they're leading the charge.
Well, thank you so much, Trent. And you're a great example of the people and the resources that contractors have access to when they get involved and they meet people and they just start talking about the issues that are going on. So again, thank you for everything you do for the industry. And thank you to everybody who's watching. If you have any questions, make sure you can reach out directly to Trent at cotneycl.com. Or if you're on our website, make sure you visit roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free digital edition and our e-newsletters. And everyone, please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Hey!